my last question for you, and I appreciate you doing this interview on Labor Day, and sorry
Yeah,
if I took you away from any
no,
Labor
it's all
Day
right.
celebrations.
Well, we're gonna have a
Um,
barbecue a little later, so.
cool. Yeah, actually, and it's weird. Today is also the day that the unemployment benefits for COVID expires, which is pretty insane that it's expiring on Labor Day, that you'd actually have it line up that way. You also have the eviction moratorium that
Right.
expired. And also in February, the student loan payments are set to resume. It just seems as though you have all of these different relief efforts that are really going to hit the middle class and working class people. And it seems as though going into next November's elections, you're going to have a lot of people saying, actually things were better under Trump. I was doing better economically, and Democrats have just screwed me over time and time and time again by
Right.
letting all of these things expire. So just what are your thoughts on that? Why are Democrats letting that happen? Why are they not keeping these in place at least until after next November's election?
Well, because I do think that we are seeing that people, businesses are having a difficult time finding workers. We're seeing, and that in and of itself hinders the economy. And so I think they're worried about more of a ripple effect of if the businesses can't find workers and they can't keep their doors open, then, or even open them at all because they can't find workers, then, we're going to have like this other problem. And, I have a real, like, I have a sort of my feelings on the relief and them expiring are kind of mixed because I have to say that I've just seen and this is anecdotal, I totally understand that, but I have a lot of friends that live in a lot of different neighborhoods in Los Angeles that are from very different socioeconomic classes, from Watts, to Beverly Hills. And I could tell you that a lot of people are taking advantage of the situation right now, that they're not really hard up. Even in the inner city neighborhoods, my friends that live in those neighborhoods that interact with the people are saying that they're not actually hearing any, and these are people that are community organizers. They're on the ground. They're talking to people. They're not just like average people that are, they're actually engaged in politics, in community. And they're saying that they're not hearing of a lot of need where people really, if they don't get these moratoriums, oh no, they're actually finding the opposite. And I'm seeing the same thing just in my neighborhood as well, that more people are taking advantage of the situation. There are people who need to be evicted. There are people that need to be evicted. They're committing crimes. They are, they're making the place uninhabitable for their neighbors. They need to go, and they're not able to be kicked out. People that normally would be evicted are not able to be evicted because of the moratoriums. And that's a challenge. I know a lot of business owners that say they're having to pay people under the table in order to entice them in, because those people don't want to give up their unemployment benefits. They're wanting both, and they're even paying them, way more. I think but on the flip side of this, what I like about all these benefits is that it is forcing employers to up their game, right? They have to offer people more money. They have to offer them more benefits. It's a great bargaining chip for all of these people who are being enticed back into work. And now to me is the time to use that bargaining chip. Say, hey, I'll come back, but here's the deal. I want this many, this is how much I want now. This is what I need in order to survive in this city. So I think that there's a real bargaining chip available to people that they should have been using during the summer when everybody was scrambling for workers. And I don't know. I think this has got to be a state by state issue. I think that there's a lot of money out there for people for rent relief that people can easily, they can go take advantage of. I don't know how easy, but the people I know who've needed it have been able to get it. So it must be somewhat, available to people, because I haven't had anybody say they've been denied that have needed it. And it's even questionable whether they actually needed it. So I don't know. I think there's a lot. I do think that, and I hate to say this because I was one of those people that I was with Bernie when Republicans were saying, oh, they're going to give them more money than what they were even making. And Bernie's like, so what? Like, we're in a pandemic. Oh, they're going to make $300 extra a month. Like, get over it. And I was with Bernie on that. But I do have to say that anecdotally, in the places I've been, from Florida to Idaho to California, people are taking advantage of it. So I understand the need to maybe end it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think generally speaking, there's so many people just like struggling to get by, even in pre-pandemic, right? Like just wages are low, rents are high, and I think too another part of this too is that rents have the potential to skyrocket at this point. And if you remove again, not only if you're removing those unemployment benefits, but also the student loan bubble, I think is really could have some dramatic effects on the economy. If you have 45 million people who essentially have to start making another mortgage payment in February, I mean, that could crash various sectors of the economy.
Right. Well, and those are problems that are pre-pandemic for sure. Student loans are a huge issue in my household. You don't even want to know how much we pay every month in student loans. It's definitely more than most people's mortgage. So we feel that burden very much so in this house. It's keeping us from buying a house because we have a mortgage payment to student loans. So we feel, that is something that absolutely needs to be addressed. That has nothing to do with the pandemic or even relief. It is really nice to have the moratorium on the student loans to be able to get ahead, or to, when it comes to paying down the principal or not paying at all if you can't. Rent has to be dealt with. And these are issues that have to be dealt with that are not going to be solved, I don't think, with just I think although the moratorium on student loans, I can see that being a thing we keep in place because the student loan issue, again, is pre-pandemic and needs to be solved. Evictions, however, like I said, there's just people committing crime. I mean, and they're not able to be evicted, and they're causing issues for their neighborhoods, for their landlords.
If they were causing crime, wouldn't they be arrested for committing crimes?
Yeah, but they're not evicted. I mean, they can be arrested, but then what? You can't evict them. So you can't get rid of the problem. I mean, if the person then is in jail and then they're not paying their rent because they're gone, you can't evict them. I mean, there's a lot of things like that are going on in my building. And one thing that's been very, very frustrating for me during this pandemic is that we have the entire floor above me is being rented out as Airbnbs. And we've just had a rotating every week groups. And I'm talking, there's 20 apartments above me. All, I would say 13 to 14 of the 20 are Airbnbs. So we're talking every week, all these new people coming in and out of these elevators. I was having my dad come here to stay for the holidays. We were sheltering in place. I worry about him and his health. He's older. I am trying to keep the people in my life protected from the pandemic. And how can I do that when all these people that are flying in from who knows where are in my building and we're circulating air around in the place? And that was a big concern for myself, and there was no way to evict. I mean, we did everything. There was no way to get rid of them, and because of the moratorium. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's been, we're not hearing a lot of stories of people who are, the millions that they're talking about that are going to be evicted. Look, 3 million people annually get evicted anyway for just bad behavior. And that was before the pandemic. So when we're talking about who's potentially at risk of being evicted, a lot of it is those same people that would normally be evicted. And then on top of that, there are other groups of people that potentially would be evicted if they have bad landlords. But again, the states should be stepping in. They've got all the money to do the rent relief. There's no shortage of the cash. It's not being used. So we've got the money to pay that. So I just don't think there's a real urgent necessity. The money has been given, and now it's up to the states to distribute it. And so to me, it's a state by state problem, and the governors are the ones that are going to have to deal with it. And the demise of them politically, if they end up with a bunch of people on the street that were evicted, families that were evicted because they couldn't pay their rent and they couldn't get access to the money that the state was given. But it was like $40 billion.
Do we really want to get to that point, though? I mean, you don't want to see families on the streets, right?
Look, at this point, honestly, it isn't our problem. It's the state's problems. They were given the money. The people have access to this money. The money is there. So this isn't like the federal government did everything the federal government could do. The federal government gave billions and billions of rent money to the states. And what, 3 billion of it has been given, or 4 billion out of the 40. So there's a lot of money to be given for rent relief, and the states need to do that. I don't know what else we can do because the money's been given. I would understand a moratorium and continuing that on. There has to be a logical reason for this. You know, we can't just do it to do it. The logical reason to do it is to say, because the government hasn't stepped in to give these people any relief. Well, the government has. So now there's no reason for it. So now it comes to, you know, the people have to go and work with their states and figure out what they need to do to get access to that money, but there's plenty of it.
So I guess just going back to my original question, just from like a purely political standpoint, like political calculus, it seems strange to me that the Democratic Party would let all of these things expire. And, you know, just going along with, I know probably for the wrong reasons, there was a lot of backlash about Afghanistan and Joe Biden's approval rating sinking for that. Do you think that collectively all these things really could lead to the Democrats just having a terrible November next year?
Oh, yeah, they're going to lose the midterms for sure. Republicans are going to take over control of everything, I would suspect. And I think most of it has to do with the authoritarian nature of the Democratic Party right now when it comes to the pandemic. You know, just really, you know, and we're seeing, and that's why I think one of the big reasons why, obviously, that's why Gavin Newsom's being recalled. And I think even Cuomo, I mean, they blamed it on, you know, the women, but it had nothing. I mean, look, people were mad. They were mad about the nursing home deaths. They were mad about being shut down endlessly in New York. People were flocking out of New York to Florida. I mean, New Yorkers are mad at Cuomo. And so they found another reason to get rid of him, because if they got rid of him because of the pandemic, then a lot of, you know, the dominoes start falling, because a lot of people did the same thing as Cuomo in a lot of the same ways. And so that would just be a ripple effect that they didn't want to deal with. So they just went ahead and said, well, you got to go because of the women. But look at Newsom. You know, he's got another problem on his hands here in California. I think what we're seeing, that is going to happen absolutely in the midterms. And it's largely because they just have really mismanaged, I think, the pandemic and the response to the pandemic. People are finally fed up and they're saying, you know, you're the ones that have locked us down for so long, and now you want to mandate all these things. And yet, you know, then you've got all these small business owners that are hit twice. I mean, you have to understand, and this is why I'm also like, it's time to end all of these relief packages. There's jobs out there. I'm not willing to sacrifice these mom and pop shops twice. I mean, are you kidding me? We already sunk them during the pandemic, keeping them shut down. And now we're going to sink them again by not giving them access to employees, you know, because they can't, because people are unwilling to come, you know, because even I know people that they're making less off of unemployment than they would be working, but they don't want to work, you know, so they're just like, no, I'm enjoying my time. I'm doing arts and crafts, and like, hey, more power to them. I understand. I love to spend time with my family too. And I think we do need to re-gear, you know, how we do our work weeks here in this country. And we really need to rethink that. But it is hurting.
I think that's part of this too, Kim, is that, you know, this was such a you know, profound thing to happen to society globally, that I think a lot of people are kind of taking inventory for how we even organize. And you know, again, there's definitely negative connotations that, right, with all these different authoritarian measures that they're wanting to implement, and you know, big business and big government are definitely trying to profit off of what's happened. But I think, you know, people on a personal level too are thinking, you know, should I be paying student loans? Should I be paying a mortgage on my future just because I went to school? You know, should I be paying this astronomical rent just to have a place to live? You know, are these wages really high enough? Are they getting me by? So I think that a lot of people are taking inventory. And there's also this story as well of a lot of people are considering quitting their jobs soon. That's called the Great Resignation. So I think, you know, that's just something that's happening on a more profound level, where people are kind of thinking, you know, maybe there's a better, more equitable way to organize our society.
I don't know if they're really thinking necessarily that. I don't think they're thinking on that philosophical of a level, but I think they're thinking on a personal level, and they're personally thinking, I don't want to commute as much. I don't want to pay as much as rent, and I don't want to work as many hours. And part of my, hourly work week goes to commuting. And then I'm struggling every month trying to figure out how I'm going to pay this crazy rent. I mean, I don't know if they're thinking on a big philosophical level on it, but I do think that they're personally thinking, I'd rather move inland, or to somewhere else, and work remotely because I can. And so I think we're seeing a lot of that movement for sure. I think there's going to be a lot more of that as people do take that personal inventory and say, my life is worth more than this. I don't want to just work all the time. I want to do other things. I want to have work-life balance. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that work-life balance for sure. But, how we get there is, we are this attitude, and this is what I want to caution people on the left about, is saying, okay, well, let's continue all of these moratoriums. Let's continue the benefits. Let's keep people from working because why should they have to slave away? Let's keep, look, you're just marching us way faster into big business and automation because look, mom and pop shops are folding left and right. They can't sustain. They don't have the workers. They already got hit hard by the pandemic. And now you've got the big companies like Amazon and they're taking over and they're not going to give jobs. Their whole goal is to move to automation. So we're like racing our way to this point faster by saying, I'm no longer valuable. So if you remove yourself from the equation, then a company is going to have to pivot, right? They're going to have no choice. If they find that their workers aren't coming back to work, they have to figure out how to make do on half the staff. Well, they will figure that out. And then they won't have a job, and that's going to be the way forward is that all of these companies, it's just like Zoom, right? We saw all of these like Skype and Zoom and everything because they had to out of necessity. Suddenly they were like, shoot, we got to like amp this up because everyone's using our platform. We got to offer more services. So businesses are going to do the same thing. When they can't find the workers, they're going to find a solution that some other company is going to offer them. That's going to be automation. And we're racing our way to it. So, we need to have human value and that, and human worth. And we could just say, well, all right, then I guess I'll just collect UBI. But I don't know how happy of a society we're actually going to be like that. I mean, I do think we're going to have something like that as we race towards automation. I don't know. There's no real way to stop it. But like climate change, we can certainly try to slow it down. So that's my big concern is I worry that we are eradicating human value from the workforce completely and faster. So I don't know what we do, but
and I agree. I think that's been a threat since the beginning. I think that big tech from the beginning of this pandemic definitely saw it as an opportunity to push AI and push automation. I don't know. Are you familiar with Whitney Webb?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that she speaks to this really well. You guys should have her on Rising. I don't know if you select guests or anything, but I think that she would be a great guest to have on there for several different reasons. But yeah, I mean, I can see where that's something that we need to be on guard against. I think about how working class people have been struggling in this country for so long, right?
Right.
And
in some areas of the country, not all areas. So we're really kind of looking at it more from a big city perspective. But there are a lot of really affordable cities in this country. They're just not cities people think to move to.
Well, Kim, I know we went way longer than I said we would. Again, I really do appreciate you being on the show, especially on Labor Day.
Yeah, no problem.
For folks out there who would like to follow you and stay up to date with you, how can they do that?
Well, I've got my channel, Kim Iversen Show, on YouTube. And of course, you can see me on the Hill. I'm also there. Right now, I feel like I'm everywhere. So.
Cool. Well, again, Kim, I really do appreciate your time today, and hopefully I can have you back at some point in the future.
Yeah, thank you.